but I think this is still a good primer for anyone interested in Gottman's work and wanting practical tips for their relationship. So I echo what you say. I'd say if we move on to criticisms, my biggest complaint about this book is that I think it is too brief. I do think that the benefit is also my criticism. If you are too busy to kind of delve into some of their deeper work, I do think that this is a nice, again, primer. But I also think that it, for anyone who is more interested in the why, the why behind these recommendations, and what the research actually looked like, I do think that this just kind of glosses over that. I don't think it really goes in depth into the research, and it's not meant to do that. But that would be the main criticism I would have, is that if someone is already kind of skeptical about, like, why should I read this self-help book, or why would this benefit my relationship, it would be, I think that would be one of the harder objections, is like, okay, they say they did all this research, but without a real understanding of how, like, they really are following a lot of the gold standards in terms of, it's hard enough to study people. They are doing it about as well as you can. I think someone who's more skeptical, or, would need probably to go read Principia Amoris to really sink their teeth into some of the real details of the research. That would be, I think, the one type of person who might not benefit as much from this book is if they're more skeptical of all social science research, or if they're really kind of hesitant to believe any sort of recommendations about relationship changing. Any other criticisms, guys?
I think not specifically of the book. I mean, it is, but because it's hey, improve your relationship in 7 days. And I think that's really great in theory. But I think if, when I'm going to recommend this book to my clients, I'm going to say, focus on one chapter each week, because it is a lot of things to think about and something different each day. I think it wouldn't really stick. And so giving yourselves that time to get used to this new idea of this one chapter, to give it room and make those adjustments that is needed, because I'm always practicing under the theory that when we make changes, we want to make sure it's sustainable changes, because these are changes not like a one-time thing. This is until the end of time in the relationship. And so I really want it to stick, and I want my couples to be successful. So the only thing is just how the prescription is given. I would just slow it down when I would recommend it.
Great point. I think that's a lot more realistic for most people, especially for the busy kind of couples that they're trying to really help. 7 days is quite a steep goal to dramatically improve your relationship. Although I do think if people really put this all into practice, yes, I think it could be very dramatic very quickly. Most people are not going to read a chapter a night and immediately begin implementing these things. So I think I agree with you. I think maybe take it a little bit more slowly. So idea number one from this book was, looking for small moments to connect. Again, back to the idea that there are countless opportunities for couples from the time they wake up to the time they go to bed. They just have to spot them. And often if they're struggling, they typically are not as good as an objective observer at seeing all the wonderful things that their partner is doing for them and the family. And these bids for connection, as we call them, those moments of opportunity, can be as simple as a sigh, right? Like, I didn't need to say anything, but that can be a signal to your partner, like, hey, check in with me, right? That could be a very pregnant sigh, as an artist might say, right? There's something there. And just the act of sighing is a bid in itself. Turning towards, turning away, or turning against are your three options in those moments. And they kind of go into, examples of that, how you can really turn towards them positively and say, hey, what's up? Asking about the sigh. Or you can ignore it, and that's turning away. Just pretend like you didn't hear it, even though you did. Back to your newspaper or whatever you're reading. Or turning against, like, what now? That sort of punishing them for for making some sort of bid. And we know that these things add up in the emotional bank account and making a couple feel more connected and making each person feel cared about. You have to make bids. Bidding slowly diminishes if you start to take each other for granted in long-term relationships. And so we have to reinvigorate this, especially if a couple's struggling. And it is important for intimacy, connection, friendship. This really makes or breaks the relationship. So it sounds simple, but that was the key point. Number one was, bids are made all day, every day. A text from your partner, a stupid meme of a cat, sent over your phone, or, hey, how was your day? Like, those things are not small. Those things really matter. And we need to keep bidding, and we need to keep turning towards the bid. And the good news is the experts, the people who are happy long-term, aren't even perfect at this. It's like an 80% batting average of turning towards. And so that gives us all hope. We don't have to have perfect days. We can have days where we're a little grumpy. The idea number two that builds upon all their principles of friendship and intimacy is asking big questions. And again, it's about not just the bids to connect, looking for those small moments to connect. This is more of the how too. So we can teach couples how to get back to that place that many of them were in, the infatuation, the falling in love or lust early period of their relationship, when you're all about this person, the love hormones are running through your veins, and you are just ravenous to know this person, and you could stay walking with them on the bell line for hours, on the phone, I don't know, video call. I don't know what the kids are doing these days. But the getting to know each other is unfortunately something that a lot of couples bury once they either move in together or get married or have kids. That's where fun often goes to die. And we have to help them to understand that even though it's no longer, say, natural, because most of us just assume I know this person, that's a very incorrect assumption, because we're all changing and evolving all the time. And if you're not asking questions, you're not staying up to date with what their dreams are, who they are, what they're struggling with on a day-to-day basis. You're not their best friend if you're not asking questions. And you need that in order to feel close to somebody. And we need somebody asking that of us in order to feel close to them. So they did a great job, I think, in that second, idea of asking the big questions, to remind us that you have to keep this part of dating alive in any long-term relationship. You building that culture of appreciation more, which again sounds simple, but it also is one of the many casualties when people start to become more bonded and move in or get married, is they often just kind of have more of a negativity bias and just take each other for granted and don't express their gratitude for all the things that their partner does. So learning how to say thank you more often really reprograms your brain to start viewing your partner in a much more positive way. And it makes us feel really cared about when our partner is noticing out loud the attributes, or the things that we're doing. Next is giving genuine compliments about who they are as a person, not just, oh, you look nice, but hey, boy, I just watching you with the kids, you're just you're a really good dad. Noticing them in real time, saying it genuinely, observing them is a very quick way to make someone feel loved and appreciated again. Being very specific also helps with that 20-to-1 positive to negative sort of bank account that we've been talking about. Number 5 was telling your partner what you need. That's really gets into not necessarily conflict, but just having a happier relationship is really dependent upon you not assuming that they're a mind reader. We're all guilty of this, but really being direct and clear about what you need in real time. Please do, this is messy, the kitchen's messy, I'm really getting stressed, can you help me out? Feels a lot different than what the bad habit most of us fall into, which is, you said you'd do the dishes. The dish, come on. We really, we have way more effective ways of getting what we need when we're direct and kind. And a lot of us do lose kindness in long-term relationships, which also doesn't help. And it's a big part of the conflict skills that we teach our couples. And then number 6 is touch, which again is not a small thing. We don't want to just build emotionally connected relationships. We know the importance of physical touch, It's really important biochemically. You know, all of us need to feel cared about. There's lots of talk about the touch deprivation in a lot of people, especially during the pandemic, even in relationships. A lot of people having a lot less sex, having a lot less even non-sexual touch. If you're going to start doing this again, they recommended the 20-second hug to really reap the benefits of the oxytocin dumping in your system to feel really good and feel bonded. Your 6-second kisses, you know, really prioritizing this and also not letting this fall down the bottom of your to-do list. And then the last one was a date night, which we all joke about in couples therapy as being like, oh, it's overprescribed. You know, that's a date night is not going to resolve all your problems. But when you look at what a date night represents, like carving out, prioritizing your relationship, sacred time, even if you don't spend money, even if you go on your front porch and sip tea or a glass of wine, like making that time to say you matter to me and you are a priority over all these other things is something that they talk about also being militant about. And so I know I just sped through those last few ideas, but I wanted to ask you guys, out of all of those key ideas, is there anything that you liked about the way that they presented that information? I know a lot of it is related to the 7 principles that they've already talked about in previous books, but anything that stood out for you about those other ideas for improving the relationship?
I think for me, just that overarching theme of just it's putting that intention back into the choices you're making day to day in those small moments. And they really all are small and they really are easy, but it's also equally easy to lean heavily on, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I'm too busy. And when you're prioritizing everything else in your life but your relationship, like it clearly shows. And it's what y'all were talking about earlier of kind of taking shortcuts. That's how, and something I see in a lot of my couples by the time they do come to therapy, is they feel like strangers in their own home because it happens so slowly over time of you growing apart from each other. But it's natural and it makes sense and it's understandable, but it's taking that time and putting in that intention with the decisions you're making. And as you add each of these different days and themes, it's, like I said, just being very intentional about it.